Hey y'all, you're about to watch a presentation that I made on November 13th, 2018 at the North Carolina Music Educators Conference. This 8 a.m. session was Instagrammed live from my Instagram at @BAFilament, and this is the video from it. I had such a great reaction from this presentation and a realization that there is so much more to talk about within this topic and how it pertains to choir and our choir programs that I'm going to be doing a follow-up on it. But for now, here's an informal look at using social media to engage and educate. To get to know more about me, feel free to go over to Instagram and check me out there at @BAFilament, or head to my website, bethfilament.com, for a more in-depth look about who I am and what I've been up to and will be up to. Enjoy!
Good morning. Thank you so much for getting up early on this cold and wet Tuesday morning. Hopefully you were able to come to the performing choir concerts yesterday and hear the incredible work that Beth Philmont is doing at Sanderson High School. So we appreciate you. Your kids were amazing. You did a fantastic job. I hope they're proud of themselves. Beth is back at it again this morning. Thank you. She's going to talk to us about ways to engage using social media. Thank you. Please join me in welcoming Beth Philmont.
Thanks for being here at 8 o'clock on the last day of convention. Y'all are the real warriors. I am so excited to talk about this because this concept has changed my life, and that's a large statement. And I am an exaggerator at times, but this is no exaggeration. Using social media has truly changed my life. So let's take a poll. Raise your hand if you have already been on social media today. That's like almost every hand, yeah. Raise your hand if you have been on more than one social media platform today. So if you've been on like Facebook and Snapchat, or Facebook and Instagram, and so that's about half. So like it or not, social media is a huge part of our lives. And I believe there's a lot of talk, and especially in education, about the negative connotations it has. And I live and breathe by coffee. It's the second day of convention. We're just going to pretend like we're in my living room. So let's have some coffee together. Cheers. Yes. I believe that social media gets an incredibly negative connotation, and particularly in education. And I believe that it's our job as educators to model to our students how this can be a positive platform for our kids, but how it can also be positive for us as well. A little bit of background on why social media has truly changed my life. Is if you read my program notes yesterday, I talked kind of openly in there about struggles that I've had. And I've been at several different schools after finishing my master's degree, and I really thought that upon finishing that degree that I would pick a school, it would be the school, I would stay there for years and build a program, and that was just not my path. And I thought that I had reached the school that I would be able to do that at Sanderson. And this past January, I'd been there a year. I started mid-year, and things just didn't feel like they were clicking. And I was really struggling with a lot of different reasons, and thanks to therapy, which I'm a huge believer in and very open about saying it is so important. We should never be ashamed of talking about how important therapy is in our lives, particularly as teachers. But in working through therapy and then intentionally seeking out people on social media that had a positive message, that were really encouraging, it truly changed my life. And I began to utilize social media as a tool for seeking change and for seeking encouragement. Just this morning, I was listening actually to a live video of someone that I follow regularly, and they were talking about this is truly the reference that they used. And if you know me, you know I also just ran a marathon. So I'm not saying this because I just ran a marathon. This was their connection. But they said when you're training for a marathon, you don't go hang out and talk with people that are sitting on the couch watching TV and eating Fritos. Right? You don't associate with those kind of people. When you're training for a marathon, you are asking the marathon runners. In my case, it was my friend who had just run an Ironman. And you're talking with them and saying, hey, what kind of nutrition do I need to be doing? What does my training schedule need to be looking like? And I think social media is an opportunity for us to really think of that in a similar context. It's going to allow you to connect with other educators that are training for marathons as well, because we all know it's isolating at times in our buildings, being one of 2 or 3 music educators. We also know that sometimes the music educators that we are fortunate enough to be around, we don't always connect with them for various reasons, and that's okay. Whereas social media provides a context for us to seek out specific people that we want to connect with and that are training for that same marathon that we are. So before we continue, because I know we're all in different places, I truly want to know, what do you want to know about this? It's like normally at the end we ask questions. What are some things that you are, like questions that you might have about social media, anything you're looking for it to be addressed? Go. Yes.
For me, I was actually just saying this on my school, my course Instagram.
Yeah.
I post things and then all the likes, or I post a story and everyone who viewed it, it's like 5 of my students and then 75 of my friends. So how do I get my students to actually follow my classroom Instagram?
Got it. Awesome. I love it. What else? Yeah.
I don't know that my desire to upgrade my social media usage is something that's fuel to me, but
Absolutely.
the desire for my students to use it in a proactive way to like support our program, promote our program, to connect with each other, that's something I'd like to help facilitate.
Awesome. Great. Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Times I've been forced to do Twitter in previous schools, they just, okay, I'm there, I see this, I don't have time to read it.
Right.
I don't know, and then it's gone, and what are the benefits of anything of
Absolutely.
releasing fatalities in positive ways and not getting caught or other, and your school account, your personal, whatever.
Awesome. Great. No, that's awesome. Yeah.
I'm interested in how you find the balance between being in the moment and experiencing the music with your kids and documenting so much of it on social media.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's a lot to be learned from that, and I
Yeah.
know that's something you're really great about doing. But I'm curious sometimes when I see stuff like that, and other people's changes, I follow a lot of different people on Twitter and
Sure.
on Instagram. At what point do you stop interacting, not stop interacting
Yeah.
with kids, but finding that balance so that you can do that without taking away from their actual educational experience?
Awesome.
I don't know if I've already.
I totally understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Completely. All right. I'm going to try to weave this through, and then if I miss something within this, we're definitely coming back to this. But I really appreciate that insight, because it allows me to framework where we're going to go with this. Because the more I began thinking about and studying and writing this topic, I was like, whoa, there is so much. There is so much. So I want to tell you a little bit about me. So several of you follow me on Instagram, so you know, or on social media, so you know a bit kind of what I'm about. But I want to give you my personal experience and my personal background before we then dig into your why. But first, I just want to address, what is social media? Right? So sometimes we just talk about social media, but what really is social media? I had a really great definition written down in my notes that aren't showing up on this, so I'm going to do my best to summarize that. But it's basically just online platforms that we're using to communicate with each other. One definition that I saw that I really resonated with was that it's microblogging. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Sometimes we think as blogs as being very big and cumbersome, but a lot of these social media platforms are just micro blogging opportunities for us to share little snippets about what we're doing and why we're doing it. I have been on social media. I remember the year. It was 2005. And you can either, it's funny saying this because some people are like, oh, that was a long time ago. And some people will go, yeah, that was not that long ago. But I was a freshman in college, and I was at a very small private school in Nashville, Tennessee. And all of my friends had Facebook because they were at big state schools, and our school didn't. And my college suite mate, who was across the hall from me, Maddie, we both had a lot of friends at state schools, and we were like, emailing Facebook daily to request for our university to get Facebook. And the day we got the email that says, you now have Facebook, you can log in, I'll never forget, we ran to each other's rooms and go, we have Facebook! And we then started looking up all of our friends that were on Facebook and like maxing out our friend requests, and then we'd wait for like 5 people to accept and do that. So some of you have no recollection of that. You have no remembrance of what life was like in Facebook at that time, and others of you might remember that in other contexts or have been there with me as well. So Facebook was a big part of my life as a college student early on. And then I joined Twitter in 2010, and then Instagram a little when I was teaching, actually. And what's funny is if you roll down to my pictures from when I first got Instagram, it's literally just student pictures of my students, because I have always loved taking pictures. I have always loved videoing things, and never dreaming that it would be in this context, that I would be able to use and share things through social media. So that's a little bit of my why. These are 2 of my, this is like my Instagram, or excuse me, this is my Twitter little heading, and this is Twitter, this is Instagram. But I used social media casually until I got to graduate school. You know, I'd post pictures of friends and of my students and things like that, because at that point there weren't really any laws against posting your pictures of your students on social media. So when I got to college, or graduate school, I had the opportunity to be as assistant director with a community choir there, and I kind of took over their social media and started posting things about the choir and what we were doing within the community. It was a really small town, and I began to really dig that, because I thought, what a cool opportunity for us to connect with local businesses about what we're doing, with local community members, and things like that. And it really, really stuck out to me, and I loved doing that. And when I finished graduate school, I moved back home to North Carolina. And if you remember, I started this by telling you that sometimes we are around music educators and we just don't connect with them per se, or sometimes we're the only music educator in our building. And at that point, I had a master's degree in music. I had just done this like really cool graduate recital thing on Baroque rhetoric. And I was teaching middle school. And I taught middle school before, but this was at a middle school that didn't have a choir program prior to me getting there for several years, and it was building. And the dance teacher across the hall from me, who was amazing, she goes, well, my kids went to Danny Yancey's school, and Danny Yancey is just the bomb, and you need to know about Danny Yancey. And so I saw that Danny Yancey had a Twitter, and I reached out to Danny Yancey in 2014 and said, hey man, I hear you're doing great things. And for a year, Danny Yancey and I were Twitter friends. That is truly how I became friends with Danny Yancey, was via Twitter. And this picture is from NCMEA in 2015 when his group performed. Ironically enough, yesterday when we were getting ready to go up literally on stage, one of my singers turned to me and goes, I just realized I performed at NCMEA before. I was with Mr. Yancey, which was kind of, we've only been talking about this for several months. But anyways, that was the first time I've ever seen Danny Yancey in person, was that amazing performance that he did. If you remember, it was cool. He had a student teacher up there. He also had Ramona Jenner up there, recognizing the work that they had done. And so through that, I just continued to randomly and haphazardly connect with music educators. In February of this year, I had a little conducting gig thing at the symphony with a girls' choir in the area. I was filling in for someone, and I had hashtagged or tagged us in the North Carolina Symphony or something, and this person, Crushing Classical, liked it. And I was like, Crushing Classical, I'll go to their account and look at them. And it was someone that was talking about, she was an instrumentalist and talking about classical music within this online space. And I followed her, and I began listening to her podcast. And then I realized that she lived in Raleigh, North Carolina, 15 minutes down the road from where I was. Her husband is the concertmaster of the North Carolina Symphony. She used to play horn for the North Carolina Symphony. And several months later, we ended up meeting for coffee and have continued to talk about social media within this space and how can we use it to connect. And I have a million other stories of how I have randomly found people online and how I have become friends with them and through that. I am now working in a space where I want to continue to garner conversations, not just between music educators, but I also want to engage my students. We'll talk about policy in just a bit, but my Instagram is completely open, much like a Twitter. Like, it's not a private Instagram. And I have students that will go in and watch my stories and different things like that. And again, we'll talk about the legalities of that and how we'll talk about all of that. But I love engaging with my students, whether it's via that platform or I have since initiated 2 other social media platforms. One is our high school choral account, and the other one is something called Choir Baton. And this is something too that I'm gonna jump on my soapbox about really quickly. Corinne, who is in the back right there, wave Corinne. I'm friends with Corinne because of social media. I'm friends with Corinne through social media that is not a choir social media. We follow a local RDU Baton account, and she saw when I was taking that over for the day, she saw that I was a choir director. We ended up meeting for coffee. I ended up getting to do her all county, and we have become friends with that, and that interaction spawned the idea for me to have a collaborative Instagram account called Choir Baton that also has a Facebook page, that also has a website, but it's a chance for different choirs to take over an Instagram account. And what I kept running into when I would go up to choir directors, I'm not looking at any people in particular, and saying, hey, yes, I want you to do like an Instagram takeover day. Like, hey, here's the baton. It's a joke because of like a relay baton and a choir baton. Hey, show me inside your classroom. My kids want to see what's going on in your classroom. I want to know what's going on. And do I have any volunteers to tell me the responses they gave me when I said that? Derek.
Oh no one wants to see that.
Yeah. No one wants to see inside my classroom. No one wants to see what I. No, we're not ready for that yet. We're not ready. Oh, my kids won't sound as good. I can't post that. And there was all this kind of fear that began creeping in through doing that. And so once I began to realize this, I was like, we got a problem. And that's a whole other session, a whole other year about our fears, about putting ourselves out there, and what other people are going to say about us, and how they're going to judge us, and what we do and what we say. And I use solfege, and I use numbers, and I use Takadini, and I use Ta-Titi, and this, that, and the other. But, yeah. Another day. So your why, and this goes to a little bit of what Brad was saying, and several of you have said, like, hey, I'm here. I'm listening to your stories. I believe that social media is powerful, and I want to use it, but it is not something that I personally want to have a handle on. Kudos to you for being here and for knowing that and for getting that, because just because it's important doesn't mean that you have to be the sole operator of it, but just like I was saying, you can facilitate this happening. I'm working towards facilitating, or my students facilitate their own choir Instagram, and I'm kind of over it. social media is not going anywhere. People are making millions of dollars on social media. If we continue to say, that's too much for me, we are missing the boat. We are missing the chance for students, for people, for the public to hold in their hands this art form that we love so much, that we spend tireless amounts of hours on working. We are missing the opportunity to share with them and engage with them what we are doing if we are not utilizing this. So if you're in a place that is saying, this is not for me, I can't personally facilitate this, but you are here to learn, that is amazing. That is just as much as personally holding it and being a part of it. So we'll talk a little bit more about how you can engage, but that goes to your why, right? Is your why for yourself? Is your why for your program? Is your why for your community? Because I think the why of which you choose to engage in social media will impact what you produce on social media. Maybe you have a couple different accounts if that's how you want to roll. Maybe you're going, my why is my program. I want to use it to engage my students with one another. Maybe it's you just want your students to engage with one another, but you also want to engage with local communities. Maybe you're going, that's great for my students to use, that's great for the community to use, but I want to engage with fellow educators. It's important to think about, why are you wanting to engage in social media? Does that make sense? Cool. All right, so let's talk legal. The laws are constantly changing, and I'm not impervious to the fact that I am live and recording this out here and telling you this, but right now in Wake County, the county that I work in, the laws, to the best of which I understand them, are that you cannot be friends with students or parents on sites, except Twitter is something that they do encourage that. And in Twitter, the unique thing about Twitter versus Facebook is that I can be friends with you, but you don't have to be friends with me. Makes total sense. And I think Twitter is a really great thing to facilitate within that. Twitter, if you don't know, is the 140 characters, I believe it is, or less, that you can write and type and tweet at each other and this sort of thing. The way the laws are right now, and they have kind of changed since, they're always changing and we're always behind. We know this. Is that Instagram it is okay if you have a choir Instagram that says Benton Convention Center Choir Program, and you can post pictures of students and things like that within your area, so long as it's through the school. Teachers are not to do that right now. Now, if you follow me on social media, you're going, well, Beth, you post your students on social media and you do live stuff on social media. I'm still continuing to talk with administration about this, but this has come after I sent out my syllabus at the beginning of the year, and I let all of my parents know this, that I am going to be taking pictures and I'm going to be recording. And if they don't want their students to be a part of it, totally fine. I have had and do have students in foster care, so that's always a no-go of posting any of their pictures or videos. But just to let you know, because I am so passionate that I have to teach my students how to be social media literate. If I'm not modeling how to be professional in a social media context, how are they going to learn? Because social media is not going to continue to be this like, hey, look at what I'm, silly sort of thing. It's an opportunity for a visual resume, if you will, and I want to model what that's like for my kids. I want to model for my kids that you can learn through social media. I have learned so much through social media. Part of my journey was not just in surrounding myself with fellow marathoners, but also in what I eat. I have learned so much about health and nutrition through following different accounts on social media, and I want to show that to my kids. So that's kind of where I stand on the legal thing. A lot of times people say, well, you can record, but you can't show their faces. Well, okay, do that. Sometimes I feel weird always like putting my face up because I'm like, it feels pompous. That's how I feel with it. Like, no one's gonna want to see my face because it looks showy. But then generally when I look at other people's accounts, I don't look at theirs and go, oh, they're being super showy. It's that awful mindset circle reel I have in my head, right? I was listening to something this morning and they were talking about how oftentimes we are so worried about what are they thinking about me? What are they thinking? What do you think? He's younger than I am. He's probably like, I don't know, way more, you know, he's probably thinking, what is it doing? And so many, so what are they thinking about me? Are they judging me because my makeup cost? Are they judging me because my phone cover doesn't match my pants? Or do I look like I haven't sleep? You know, we're also worried about that. And when you begin to engage in this community, it's very tempting for that to be magnified as well. But one of my favorite pastors, she's not really a pastor, but is Rachel Hollis, and she said, someone else's opinion of you is none of your business. Someone else's opinion of you is none of your business, because honestly, if we're posting stuff online and we're doing it for the likes or we're doing it for this, that, and the other, that's like irrelevant, that's boring, that's lame. Hopefully you're posting out of a place of realness and wanting to know more. So that's a little bit about the legal sections. Let's talk about platforms and just review quickly. These are my favorite ones. Most of us are familiar with Facebook, yes, which is constantly changing as well in their attempt to continually being relevant. And I think this is a challenge. Did I just say that? Yes, I did. This is a challenge that a lot of us have, because as social media continues to be a part of our life, we note that different people different areas and groups of people will use social media for different reasons. I'm struggling with right now, all of my students' parents are on Facebook, but all of my students are on Instagram. My kids don't know about Facebook at all. They don't know how to utilize it, but it's still a relevant platform of social media, because if I'm not using it, a lot of my students aren't engaging with it. So that's Facebook. Twitter is your 140 characters or less. I'll be honest, I don't use Twitter as much as I used to. I think it's still out there. I think the only reason, in my opinion, that it's still relevant is because so many educators have been using it. Because it's had that I can follow you, you don't have to follow me sort of thing to it. And I just have to agree with you that I look at Twitter and I'm like, I just sometimes get bored with it, because my favorite platform is Instagram right now. I think Instagram does so much more than what Twitter ever could and do. And we'll talk about in just a second how we can coordinate those, so you can be posting stuff to Twitter and never really have to open the application. Instagram is my love, it's my passion. Why? I think it goes back to my roots of being that 5-year-old with a camera that was taking pictures of everything. Loved doing home videos and things. So Instagram has grown so much in the 7-8 years that I've even been a part of it. Right now, if you are on Instagram, you have your grid, which is your pictures, and now you can post videos on it. But then one of the coolest features about Instagram is that it has the Instagram Live. And, whoo, buddy, it's one of my favorite things. You get a glimpse into what people's day entails. And I'm finding that particularly younger students and particularly people that are on Instagram a lot are not really looking at what you're posting on your feed, on your grid, but they are looking at your, they're looking at your lives. That's what I'm really looking at too. It's giving me a glance into your day, into what you're doing. And so the lives, or like the little 10-second videos that you can take and post, are really powerful, and you can tag people in them, and then they can tag and reshare. It's just really, really cool. Pinterest is actually still a really relevant source. I have gotten a lot of great recipes. But there are a lot of great music resources on there as well, and it's a way I've begun categorizing it. So in some ways, and Pinterest is just your digital corkboard. It's just your digital corkboard, and so that's something. It's not as interactive, but you can get some really great ideas from it. And finally, YouTube. In some ways, I think YouTube is kind of, it's not as big as it was, but it's still super relevant, and I think that it's so relevant for us as choral educators, because I mean, I can't tell you the last time that I got a score and I sat down at the piano first and began playing through it to hear what it sounded like. Or that I just sat at my desk and was like, I'm going to audiate what this. No, I'm pulling that sucker up on YouTube. And I was at a conducting symposium this summer, and the guy that was doing it was like, and I'm not trying to throw shade, and I have to really be careful because I'm recording this, but, and I get like, there's this mentality of, how am I doing on time? Perfect. There's this mentality that, well, I'm a real musician. I don't need to listen to a recording of it. That's not how Bach would have done it. Y'all, I am pretty sure if Bach had YouTube, he'd been pulling that sucker up to listen to it all at the same time too, right? So like YouTube is this incredibly relevant opportunity for us to hear things. And you don't have to be listening on YouTube for good stuff. I can learn a lot from some bad videos on YouTube as well. Oh, they made that mistake. I'm going to be circling that because if they made that mistake, my kids are going to make that mistake. So the posting and sharing of YouTube and commenting and different things like that is still incredibly huge and incredibly relevant. And that's a platform I'm trying to do a bit more of. I'm honestly trying to post more rehearsal videos up there. Heavens to Betsy. Okay, so we've talked about some platforms. Okay, so let's talk about some things and some ideas. And this links to question.
You know, at some point, want to watch realities of YouTube videos.
So, yeah, and I think that goes back to those video release forms. And those signed forms and things like that. So a couple things to consider. There are platforms that you can do that will allow you to link, and schedule posts. So I think something maybe for you, Brad, where you're like, I don't want this social media, I don't want to do anything with it, but I get the relevance of it. Can I get an amen? Amen. Okay, cool. So this is something you meet with your team of students and you say, we have these concerts coming up and we need to put these out on social media. If you literally Google social media scheduler, you'll find a plethora of some. I don't use social media schedulers, but there's a million out there, and just little bits of research, or put your kids on it and have them do it. You can schedule things, and so you can sit down with a team of students at the beginning of the month, or 1 or 2 students or whatever, and say, these are things that we want to go out on social media, and schedule them to go out on Wednesday at such and such time, on the Thursday before your concert at such and such a time. So that way, all of your social media is scheduled for the week, or scheduled for the month, or however you choose to do it. You've sat with your students while it's being done. You get to approve what they're posting and what they are doing, excuse me, before it ever goes out, and then it's done, and then you can step away. It's a really cool option, particularly if you know it's a really relevant platform and you want to get out there, but it's just not in your wheelhouse to post every day and to post real time. And I can do some more research personally, actually, and probably throw that up and get that out there for us. Another thing is linking, right? I don't like Twitter as much. You don't like Twitter as much, but I love Instagram. So a lot of times when in your platforms, you can go through and you can link, like through Instagram, you can actually link it to where it will automatically post to your Facebook and to your Twitter. So you do one post and bam, there it goes. There's also different platforms through even schedulers that, like Hootsuite. HOOTESUITE, that will link through this. And if you're sitting there and again going, this is not my wheelhouse, ask your kids. Make them do the research. This is the future of what they are going to be doing, and by engaging your kids in this, you might be helping them start a career in something like this, because this is what careers are going to go to. If you're using Instagram, and I've talked a little bit about this, 3 big platforms you have on Instagram are your grid, which is the little blocks of the pictures or videos that you see. That's what people call your grid. Some people, when they're scheduling things, they'll schedule it and be so detailed as to say, this is how I want my grid to look. And every 2 posts, I put a quote up there. Every 2 posts, I put this up there so that the grid is visually appealing. Now, there's some arguments today that most people aren't really looking at your grid. They're really following the videos that you're posting each and every day. And then you also have the opportunity to go live as well, which is what we are right now, is live. Instagram also has IGTV out now, Instagram TV. From the research that I'm looking, and when I say research, I mean reading. It's not like in the publication of I'm not that smart. Actually, I just don't care that much. It's not that I'm not that smart. I am smart. Positive saying and thinking. I don't think Instagram TV is going to be around a long time. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just really think they tried it, and I think it's going to go out. So I'm not even really going to talk about that too much. And then again, this goes back to your why. Things that when you are thinking about your platforms, Facebook is where you're going to get your parents. Or if you're a community choir person too, it's where your community choir is really going to resonate. Instagram is where your kids are hanging out these days. I like this background music I have going. Instagram is where your kids are hanging out these days. And if you don't know what a Finsta is, let me tell you, a Finsta is a fake Instagram. And your kids have multiple ones of these. And if you're a parent and don't know about Finstas, ooh buddy, throw that word out there and see what they say, or see what their friends say. But they have these fake Instagrams and things like that. But the other really cool thing about Instagram is that you can have multiple accounts under one. So you can like log into one and jump through and go to the other. But that's kind of your layout of Instagram. You also want to think about who's using Twitter. Maybe you begin to find that a lot of people really aren't using Twitter, so it's not a platform that you want to engage with. So consider again your audience and where your audience is and what you're posting on your audience. There's some people that will argue that if you put the same post in everything, people bypass it. Does that make sense? So like if I am writing, hey, October 13th is this concert at such and such a time, and I blast that out on every social media thing, that they begin to bypass it. I think the blasting of all of it works really well if you're not a frequent poster. If you're a frequent poster and you're blasting the same message on every social media outlet, do you remember all the hands that were raised of people that are following more than one social media thing? They begin to just overlook it because, oh, that's exactly what they said on Facebook. But something to consider too is if you're posting differently on different platforms, to mix up your message and consider your audience when you're mixing up your message. So specific ideas. I really, when I was thinking about this again, there's so much to consider, and I was like, well, I gotta get to some ideas. I hope I've convinced you that this is a relevant way and maybe some different ways. So these are some ideas. This goes without saying: concert promotion, fundraiser promotions, anything like that. Any sort of image that you can throw up there that says, hey, our concert is this, you should come for this and there. Something that's really cool is consider interviewing your students. And if you're worried about privacy stuff, you just take your phone and you say, hey student, as I just took Keegan's, tell me about your, what are you thinking for the concert? You don't have to show their face, and just do it that way. Thanks, Keegan. Yeah, interview your audience members. This is something I haven't done yet, but that I really want to do. After a concert is go up and say, hey, what would you want to be on our Instagram thing? I always try to ask someone, which is why the camera's not pointed up here towards you, it's pointed towards me. Ask someone, hey, what did you think of your concert? What was the most engaging song? What did you like? And engage with your audience that way. It could be really, really, really cool. Warm-ups. This is something that I will go live on, and my warm-ups are not anything special, but sometimes I'll be sitting at the piano and I'm like, hey guys, we're going to go live. And they get real excited, and I just throw my phone down there. I can go live. You can have a student go live on their phone. That actually might be a cool thing for you to do if you trust your students, depending on them. Like, have them go live on their phones, or have a special student that with parent permission gets to go live from their phone and record some of the class. And I did this, and I just made up these they weren't dumb, they were cool, but they were dumb, warm-ups, and one day in class, and I had more messages from people that were like, it was just so fun to see you engaging with your students. Sometimes we just need that reminder that, man, my kids are singing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or doing the same warm-ups just like you are. There's someone else living this crazy life that we live with me, and it's happening together. Another fun thing I want to do is film them sight reading. Y'all, my kids were sight reading some real painful stuff 2 weeks ago or so. Weren't they, Peter? You saw us. Yeah, it was brutal. I'm posting the bad stuff because I bet your kids have brutally sight read some stuff too, and it's just nice to know that, hey, they're struggling from dough to me just like my kids are. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay for our kids to struggle from dough to me. They're doing it. They're showing up. And you know what? Have they gotten better, Peter? They've so gotten better. And so if I'm doing a sight reading thing, I'll pull it out and I'll show like what they're actually sight reading on the screen. And like you, I have a lot of friends on my Instagram. Like I have some students, but then I have a lot of my friends. Guess what? I'm music educating my friends. And sometimes we think it's for one audience, and it ends up helping another audience. I kid you not, just this morning, I was walking to Camino for coffee, because I'm usually like that. And actually, I just didn't know the hotel had to go cups. And I went to a cup of coffee when I was sitting here. And a girl who I have only met in passing like several times, and we follow each other on Instagram and all this kind of stuff, sent me a message and said it was in response to a video that I had posted of the honors choir singing at the Stevens Center, not during the performance because that would be something you would get in trouble for. But it was during a rehearsal, and she was, thank you so much for sharing this journey, because I'd showed snippets of their rehearsal process and things like that. And she's not a choral musician. I don't even know if she sings. But people are excited about what we're doing, because what we're doing is so cool, and it's changing the world. Like, we are changing the world. And when we engage in this platform, we get a chance to show other people that. We get a chance for parents to see the process of what their kids are doing, and the more we can engage people in this process of choral music making, the more exciting the product is, right? Because in all actuality, I'm by the mindset the product is really the process. So if the product is really the process, what a cool way for us to show people the process product. Sight reading, reflections, like what did you think about this? I have a student. I don't know if he's watching this. He probably is. Manny, are you there? Because he's usually not doing his work in class, and he's on his phone, and he will jump in here a lot. So, Manny, are you there? Just saying. I'm waiting. He just might be. Manny's first week in my chorus class, he like barely sang or did anything last year, and he was a real pain in the butt. And I pulled him outside and I said, listen, these are not the expectations that are in my class. I expect you I'm getting emotional. I expect you to do better. This is not what's accepted. And he stayed with me. And still, like all last year, really even having trouble accessing his voice register, but his attitude really began to change. And I was told when he signed up for chorus again this year. And he started following my Instagram account, I guess maybe over the summer or something, and I would be posting stuff from the videos. And he was skipping one of his other classes and stopped by to see me one day a couple months ago. Should have been in history or something like that. He had a pass in his hand. Hey, Manny, I'm glad to see you, but shouldn't you be in class? And he stuck his head around the door and he goes, hey, Miss Philman, I was listening to the video last night when you posted of when we were singing in class yesterday, and when we were in class, I thought we sounded really good, but I listened back and we didn't sound as good as I thought we did. And I said, okay, Manny, tell me more. What did you hear? And we proceeded to talk about this, and they're listening back to these. They want to be engaged in what they're doing, and they're thinking without me really having to pull it out of them sometimes. So that's a cool reflection thing. Some other ideas, takeovers. This is another great thing. If you are comfortable with having a student manage the account, one of my students, Jada, manages our choir account, and she does takeovers. And each kid that's on our choir council has a different day, Takeover Tuesday, because yay, alliteration. And so they take over and they show their home life. And you're live too. I just know what's your time. Okay. Do I go to 50 or 10? 50. Okay. Cool. So takeovers are really cool. Question and answer. Instagram has this cool thing where you can type in a question and people can answer. I did a lot of this with preparing for NCMEA. I would ask people questions on, here's some pictures of it, of like, hey, what vowel did you like? And cool responses. Profanity by Joel King right here on his response. So just ignore that. That's shocking. But he said, I picked the wrong answer, which is funny because when you vote on Instagram, it'll tell you what the majority of the people voted, the poll. And he said, I picked the wrong answer. I bet you want A, but it feels too back in the throat. Keep the idea of A, but with more forward resonance. Think an open smile like this. And he sends me an emoji. Another friend who's a doctoral student at LSU said, vowel in choice A gives too much attention to an unimportant symbol, in my honest opinion. But I also studied with a similar grad school professor, Graham Leonard, we've missed you. Graham goes, I'm always a stickler on how it sounds when you say it normally. The with the schwa sounds more normal to my ears, and also adding the schwa makes the word the unstressed, make da-da-da-da-da-da. So then cool, not only was I getting neat feedback as an educator, I was then able to show my kids and be like, look, there's other people that talk this crazy language like we do, and cool things like that. Another thing that Instagram has right now is you can take your stories and you can make highlights. And this is something that I have tried within the last 2 months that I'm actually really, I'm just to say, I'm proud of it. I am proud of it. I'm going to own being proud of it because that's okay. I took Instagram stories of my entire process preparing for NCMEA. Of me looking for rep, of me rehearsing different things, of me stressing over rep, of me asking people, what should I include in a bio so it doesn't sound like, so it's real, and you feel like you learned something from a bio besides where someone went to school. There's nothing wrong with those. I just want it to be different. And I put those all, and you can highlight them, and you make like these highlight reels of different stories that you're talking about. When I was training for my marathon, I would be out on a run, usually in the rain, because it rained through most of my marathon training, and I'm like, this really sucks, but I'm doing it, and then I've compiled them all. So selfishly, I just get to go back and watch it, and I think it's really fun, and it's easier to organize it like that than on my phone. So it's selfish. But also, I think it's really also cool for other people to see the process, because I said it before, but I'll say it again. The fun is in the process. The learning is in the process, and the more we can highlight that, I think the more authentic that we can be. So that's something that I've utilized on that question and answer is another really cool thing. Using hashtags. If you don't know about hashtags, look it up. Tagging other people. And again, it goes back to that whole concept of process building. I know I'm smidgeling over time. That was the question I asked. I said, which do you like better? Choice A, 47%. Choice B, 53%. Thanks a lot, guys. I'm kidding. But that just goes to show you that it's all personal preference. And that was actually really validating for me when I was asking people about what vowel you liked better, and I saw that it was split, and I was like, yeah, everyone has their own opinion and own thoughts, and it's okay that that we're half and half of what people have seen. I do want to encourage you to check out a couple people. Choir Baton, which is my own choir follower thing, and it's a really neat way for you to see choirs in Alaska, choirs in Minnesota, choirs around in North Carolina, and so on and so forth, and see what they're doing. Crushing Classical, she's an instrumentalist, former horn player that is launching stuff really cool within what we're doing in social media, and she has a great podcast that's highlighting things. What happens in choir is a middle school choir teacher, and she is the bomb. She does a lot of reflections about what her teaching is like. And this is how real she is. I was standing in line at Camino the other day, not today, and I get an Instagram message that says, "Hey girl, I just took a chance on this, but I think I found you on Venmo," and which is a way to send money through an app. And I sent you a little money for a pre-performance treat. This is someone I've never met in real life. We are only Instagram friends and social media friends, but we've connected like that. And so send good thoughts her way. They're performing at Virginia Music Educators Conference on Thursday. Anna Krusek is really cool. Not only does she have a great Instagram, but she also has a great podcast. And in it, she's an elementary music specialist, but Lord, don't we know that teaching high school is basically teaching elementary school music. And she goes through all the different music education learning theories. And I didn't pay attention / didn't learn it in undergrad. And so her podcasts have been really cool ways for me to have refreshers in all of those. And she's just really great. And then Natalia is also a music educator in Michigan, or not Michigan, in Minnesota, that I connected with through Choir Baton. And we she shared her kids were singing a round, and I was like, oh, my kids are singing that round. Here's a really great worksheet that our English teacher did for you on that round, and sent it to her. She saw that we were singing a song. She's like, oh, I have a really great journal on that. I'll send that to you. And so there's so many other people out there. I encourage you to just check out the choir teacher hashtag. I know I'm over time, but just kick me off the stage, Eddie, because this is also really important, and I do need to share this. People will say social media is a highlight reel. It's only a highlight reel if you make it, and it's okay for there to be highlight reels. But the moment that you begin to scroll through your social media and utilize this, and you begin to feel down on yourself, or it's very tempting to hear another choir, but you're like, oh, that choir will never sing. Oh, I don't have it. Then what you do is you go and you set it down, right? Because as engaging as it can be, it is what it is, and you put it away. And this kind of goes, I think, a little bit to what you said, Katie. I have it out so much that I don't really think about it, and I'm okay with the not perfect coming through. And because the not perfect comes through, that I think helps me not think about it as much, and it breaks that fourth wall. But and so I think that's the biggest thing is to keep it real and to not think about, should I use it now or should I not use it now? Is I just try to make it as authentic as possible. You're going to hear us screw up. You're probably going to know our kids. Not to go out, maybe it would be great. But yeah, it's just real. It's just real. So I really encourage you to avoid burnout within that. I'm not sure if I got to all of your questions. One of them was, how do I get my students to follow? I think you just engage with them. And And maybe right now your Instagram isn't for them to follow. Maybe think about what content am I putting on my Instagram that would engage them to follow. And then also, depending on how your Instagram is set up, again, think about the voice that you have within it. I hope we touched on some things like if you have no personal desire, you can schedule it, you can mentor your students, have them teach you and engage them within that. I hope I told you about a lot of benefits, and we talked about some just different things within that, and I know I'm really over time. I would love to answer your questions. And different things like that. I would also love to be your friend on social media. So yeah, thanks. We probably don't have time for questions, but you can email me or send me an Instagram thing. Do we?
I don't think anybody else has this.
Okay, well if you want to go, you're more than welcome. I mean, you could have left an hour ago, but does anyone have any other questions? Yeah.
So the Facebook thing, I avoided is for us. Parents have some crazy page for my choir. Do you want to do this business or do you want to do this community public figure?
I don't think it matters. To be perfectly honest, yeah, that's a big thing too. When you can like it as a page or you can start it as a business, I think that's a really good question. If you don't have Facebook and you're not linking it towards that, like if you're not using it as your own account, maybe a business way is to go. In 110% honesty, I don't really know what the best one is. I would say because you don't have your own Facebook, is that what you're saying?
I have my own, I just don't, I don't think it's a lot to me.
Yeah, then I would start it as a business and get a booster. If you don't have a booster email or don't want to use your school email, just make up your own Gmail email of like, I don't want someone to have this link to me at gmail.com and use something like that. That's what I would do. Yeah, if you don't want it. It's so easy to make an email now. That's my best guess. Yeah, good.
I missed the very beginning, but I wanted to share something like Educator. So, like, because Beth does like listen so much, and it's like really cool to like see all of the stuff. She posted something when they were preparing for this that they went into your art classroom at your school, and then they were talking with the art teacher, and like she posts about this, right? So it's like one thing to hear her talk about it, but then when you see the kids in the art classroom, it's like, oh my god, I can do that, you know, like it's like that kind of like visual tactile learning thing where I was like, they're talking about tone and tone quality, and like where you like showed color, and yeah, it was like really cool and awesome. So like thinking outside of the box, you don't have to post your kids, because like some people are like really weird about it, or like the legal stuff, but like there's just so much more you can do with like sharing information. So thank you for
Oh.
yeah, it's really cool.
So I'm going to speak this into existence. It's going to happen. I'm in the process of starting a podcast that is going to. Don't turn it off. Don't turn it off. Yes. My face. It is.
Your podcast, there it is.
Wow, did anybody do intervals like those?
Yeah, it does.
Sorry.
I went straight to the club, Eddie. That's right.
Hey guys, unfortunately the last bit of my presentation did not get filmed because I learned something new that day. Instagram Lives only go for an hour before they shut off. So when I update this presentation, I'll be sure to include information on the ending slides that you didn't get to see. If you enjoyed something from this, learned something, or have questions, please feel free to drop me a DM on the Insta, or you can also send me an email, but I'll tell you, I am horrible when it comes to responding emails, so I'll do my best, and if it takes a couple days, feel free to reach out again. It is on one of my growth goals to answer emails in a shorter amount of time. That said, have an awesome day and thanks for checking this out.